There was so many ways this episode could have went down. And I was ready to call this the most unexpected what the hell moment that the great Jahi has seen today after the magical girl seemingly fell in love with Jahi because she was basically giving her love in return for the mana crystals. But to see that the Dark Lord has been living in this monstrous house that is pretty much just chaos alluring in the making, and the fact that because all of those crystals were gathered in one place, basically the Demon Lord, the Dark Lord, popped up because wherever there's a abundance of crystals, so too will the Dark Lord, and even destroying her heart, which was kind of like the foundation of the Dark Realm. Wow. And to see that the number 2, the Great Jahi, is no longer the number 2, but seemingly the Dark Lord loves the magical girl, and the magical girl loves Jahi, and you have this weird competing where the magical girl doesn't want anything to do with the Dark Lord, and Jahi wants nothing to do with the magical girl, but the people that they love. It's this very odd love triangle that I never thought I would see, but I am grinning ear to ear that we're witnessing it. First things first, let's do it in order. Magical Girl versus Jahi. Last week I said I didn't think the battle was going to happen, because the title of the episode something like the Magical Girl won't fight or something like that. So my assumption was she would, do some sort of attacks and the Magical Girl would either one-shot her or just ignore her for some reason. And instead, we actually got a pretty well-animated fight scene. I mean, typically the show looks good more often than not, but you're not expecting the biggest Sakuga moments, and this isn't going to compete with the big dogs of the season, but I mean, there was some shots that I was like, wow, that actually is very smoothly animated, it's well done, and honestly, wasn't expecting it, and given that there's not a lot of action in the show, you can definitely prioritize certain sequences to give them that extra polish in normally you wouldn't see in a show like this. And to see the overall escalation and to see the backstory of why she's kind of like taking all of the misfortune onto herself, getting that kind of like sappy emotional backstory about how she's always been treated rough, so basically harnessing that misfortune for herself feels like a sort of connection for her, which is honestly pretty sad, all things considered. And to see it like kind of build up and kind of like, it's probably like the perfect like point to represent how far Jahi has come as a character, where she saw that, like, honestly, even for herself, despite struggling and having all this horrible things happen, she's had 4 people by her side from the beginning. We had Druji, we had the manager, we had the landlady, and we have Kokura, right? She's had relationships that have helped, like, kind of helped her and kind of formed her into a better person. So the fact that rather than just killing her, which she could have done, I mean, without a doubt, she was more powerful than the magical girl in that moment, and instead she offered her a hand and saying like, I'll be with you and by your side and love you so you won't have to feel that anymore. And the fact of the matter is, rather than it just being her destroying the Dark Realm for no reason, we learned that she was kind of like almost in the process of dying. Some form of voice of God came in almost isekai style and granted her that ability in return of destroying the Dark Realm. So there's a reason for keeping her around, and there's also a reason for justifying the kind of switching of like, she really just had a shitty life, was granted this ability, tasked with a mission, and the first person who offers her true love is the person she kind of screwed over. So it kind of gives you that kind of indebted kind of mission and things like that. And it was just very comedic gold. You see the lustfulness, and I was just thinking to myself, I mean, Druji's gonna want to kill her as soon as she sees her. I mean, it's starting to make more sense in the opening that it's not like a versus, it's more of like a jealousy, which is completely hilarious. So building up to the house, like, I was expecting it to just be, I don't know, like a demon that Jahi would slap. I don't know, just for some reason, despite knowing that the opening was teasing the Demon Lord, the Dark Lord, I wasn't expecting her there, but it makes so much sense that she was not going to that room with all the crystals because she was scared, and then ultimately that formed the great Dark Lord to pop up. And the fact that the house was always full of food, she pretty much looks at the magical girl as like her mother, her savior, and I'm like, a character who can't talk, can only show minimal reactions like pouting, shaking her head. We go from Jahi, the only person who was ever able to set foot near this evil presence, was granted number 2 status and shared the power, was defeated by food because the magical girl somehow had mad cash for food. And I am not ready for the remaining, I think we have 6 episodes left, but the fact that we have the most unexpected love triangle, I was ready to come up and sing praise specifically for Jahi showing love and having that kind of like love be thrown on her and how she wants nothing really to do with it. She's kind of just wanting the crystals, and it almost feels like in karma fashion for her almost trying to dispose of her. You know, she's pretty much now having to compete with the magical girl. I have to say though, I do appreciate the fact that it's like an even split with this kind of love triangle, because if it would have just been like the magical girl with like the demon lord kind of like having this like almost like haha you wish you could be where I'm at, the great Jahi, I think it would work. I don't think it would be a bad formula per se, but seeing the direction they went with the magical girl wanting Jahi's love, seemingly having no interest in the demon lord herself, where the great Jahi has no interest in the magical girl but wants the demon lord's love, I think it makes for a way more comedic and I think chaotic dynamic, especially once you throw Druji in the mix, because Druji's gonna be like, one, no one can talk bad about the great Jahi, so she might even be mad at the demon lord for not like accepting, and then in return that will make her hate the magical girl even more. But then again, she thinks the magical girl's not there anymore, so maybe she's gonna bullshit a bullshitter, like maybe she'll say something along the lines of like something to do with the demon lord kept her alive or something, I don't know. Maybe the lies will be exposed and that will cause a new relationship to form. Either way, like, I might go as far to say this was, I mean, it's hard to say because last week really felt like peak Great Jahi in terms of emotional character building, but I think we had an equally important moment of not only just saving someone, but like, she could have killed the magical girl. Instead, she helped her, and in return, yeah, she's now in a weird love triangle she never expected, but it does feel like this is the most chaotic, hilarious, action-packed, and emotionally gripping episode, and really, there hasn't been a bad one. I mean, the Great Jahi, criminally underappreciated in 2021. We've been talking about that all across the reviews on the channel, but I mean, new characters being introduced at a steady pace, a realistic pace, and just, it's great to see how far she's come, but clearly how much story's left to tell, because I was kind of starting to wonder, I was like, if they do introduce the like Dark Lord, like how could they extend the story past 20 episodes if they ever wanted to do a season 2? And you're really starting to see how this story is just getting started. You have the mystical presence, you have the collecting of the crystals, the relationships. It's absolutely fantastic, and I think it'll be a good learning point that, you know, the Great Jahi, this great number 2 in the Dark Realm, needs to learn that, you know, one person can't be hogged all to themselves unless they're in some form of committed relationship, and definitely didn't feel like that was a committed relationship, more of a just acceptance that she was the best in a shitty situation. But thoughts and feelings on what just transpired in the love triangle episode I didn't know I needed, but I'm glad I just witnessed. Thoughts and feelings, leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.